You know that web browser you're using right now? Well, whether it's Chrome, Edge, Brave, or Opera, there's a very, very good chance it's built on a single foundation. And that foundation is controlled by one company, Google. It's called Chromium, and let's be real, it basically runs the modern internet. So today, we're going to pull back the curtain and do a real technical audit of what this browser monoculture actually means.
So let me just ask you this straight up. What secrets is your browser keeping from you? Because I guarantee, deep inside the code that you use every single day, there are hidden functions doing things you probably wouldn't expect.
All right, let's dive right in. We're going to start by exposing some of that hidden code. These special mechanisms baked right into Chromium that give Google's own websites exclusive privileges that their competitors just don't get. Okay, get a load of this. There's a pre-installed, totally hidden extension in your browser called Hangout_Services. What it does is give Google's websites, like Google Meet, exclusive real-time access to your computer's hardware performance, your CPU usage, your GPU, all of it. But what about a competitor, like Zoom? Nope, they are completely locked out. And this quote from developer Luca Cosinato just nails it. He says, Zoom, they are now at a disadvantage because they cannot provide the same CPU debugging feature as Google Meet. So you see, this isn't just some techie tool for optimization. No, it's a clear competitive advantage, and it's already raising some serious questions about whether it violates Europe's Digital Markets Act.
But the special treatment doesn't stop with performance data. Oh no, there's another, much more mysterious mechanism at play here. One that seems designed not for a technical purpose, but for pure legal leverage.
We're talking about the hidden X-browser validation header. Now, on the surface, it looks like a pretty weak anti-bot measure. But the theory, like this Hacker News user points out, is that its real purpose is to be a copyright tripwire. It's designed to force any automated scraper to copy an explicit Google copyright string. By doing that, they fall right into a legal trap, basically handing Google the grounds for a copyright lawsuit. It's a legal threat, not a technical defense. Pretty sneaky, right?
All right, so now that we've seen some of these secret handshakes, here's where we're going next. We're going to look at the engine under the hood, then we'll get into how Google writes the rules for everyone else, the great privacy irony of it all, and finally, what this means for the future of the web.
So, how in the world did we get to this point? Well, to really get it, you first have to understand the difference between the browser, Google Chrome, and the engine that powers it, which is called Chromium. They are absolutely not the same thing.
Here's the key distinction. Chromium is the open source engine. It's the foundation that anyone can use to build a browser, and it's free of user tracking by default. Google Chrome, on the other hand, is the finished, proprietary product that Google builds on top of it. And it is packed with Google services and telemetry that's constantly sending data about how you use it right back to Google. See, Chrome is the business, Chromium is the infrastructure that makes competing with that business almost impossible.
And the scale of this dominance, it's just staggering. Today, the Chromium engine, which is called Blink, powers 85% of the web. And we're not just talking about Chrome here. Microsoft Edge, Opera, Brave, Vivaldi, even Samsung's browser. They all run on Google's engine. Basically, if you aren't using Firefox or Safari, you're using Chromium.
This didn't just happen overnight. This was the result of a second browser war. It really kicked off when Firefox challenged Internet Explorer's monopoly. Then, in 2008, Google jumps in with Chrome. By 2013, they create their own engine, Blink, to consolidate their control. But the real nail on the coffin came in 2018, when Microsoft, the company that won the first browser war, finally surrendered and rebuilt its Edge browser on top of Chromium. Game over.
So what happens when you have an 85% market share? You have a monoculture. And when you control the engine that runs the web, well, you get to write the rules. And this is where we really start to see the consequences of that power.
Google's approach has really started to alienate the very open source community that helped them get here. As Tom Calloway, who maintains Chromium for Fedora, put it, there's just a huge disconnect. He says the community's work only ever made it stronger. Google has been increasingly walling off parts of the ecosystem.
And we see this power being used in very concrete ways. For example, Google limited private API access for Linux distributions, which broke key features like Chrome Sync. And then there's the push for something called Manifest v3. Critics argue pretty convincingly that it's designed specifically to cripple ad blockers by limiting the rules they can apply, which, surprise, surprise, directly protects Google's advertising business. At the end of the day, developers have to play by Google's rules because if your site doesn't work on Chromium, it's basically broken for most of the world.
This all leads us to what has to be the great irony of the modern web. So many of today's most popular privacy-focused browsers are built on a foundation created and controlled by the world's largest advertising company, a company whose entire business model relies on collecting user data.
And you don't have to take my word for it. The very existence of a project called ungoogled Chromium is all the proof you need. Its entire mission is to take the open-source Chromium code and painstakingly strip out every single Google-specific service, tracking mechanism, and piece of proprietary code that comes bundled with it.
And just look at what the de-Googling process actually involves. It's incredibly revealing. Developers have to go in and systematically replace all the web service calls that go to Google. They have to disable built-in functions that phone home to Google servers, and they even have to remove closed-source binary blobs, which are basically pieces of code you can't even read. This isn't just a matter of changing a few settings. It's a deep architectural purge that really shows you how much Google is baked into this supposedly open foundation.
So, after all that, where does this leave us? Well, the dominance of a single browser engine has really kicked off a fierce debate about the health and the future of the open web. And it really boils down to two totally opposing viewpoints.
On one hand, you've got the argument for standardization. Look, a single, dominant engine makes life way easier for web developers. You build to one standard, and you can be pretty confident your site is going to work for almost everyone. It ends those old days of seeing best viewed-in notices everywhere.
But the counter-argument is powerful, and it kind of echoes the dark ages of Internet Explorer 6. As one Reddit user put it perfectly, when one browser dominates, its bugs and its quirks become the de facto standard, not the actual, official web standards. Innovation just stagnates, and one company gets the power to dictate where the entire internet goes next.
And this really brings us to the final and most important question. In a world where one engine is the foundation for 85% of our access to information, who do you think should be writing the rules for the internet? Should it be a community with competing ideas, or should it be the one company that controls the engine?